Today on The Terrible Warriors, we meet the makers, where we get to sit down and chat with the people who make the games we like to play. And today, we connect with Panny and Aled from Leyline Press to learn all about their Kickstarter for a Mothership module entitled Andromeda. You'll learn all about how this scrappy new company went from an idea concocted after a dark night in the woods all the way to the glamorous photo shoot with their game in a bathtub. But first, this is Meet the Makers, and I love to get to know why they do what they do and how they came to enjoy this hobby. First up, you'll hear from Aled, and then the next voice will be Panny's, as I began to ask them both how they came to get sucked into this world of tabletop RPGs.
For me, I think it started just because I don't think I've always made stuff for RPGs. So it started for us, or for me, when I was 10. So we were sort of into 40K, Games Workshop, all that sort of stuff. And, I was sort of sleeping over at a friend's house, and then it was just like, obviously we can't really play 40K now because it's like, his parents have gone to bed and stuff, but it's like, we can still hang out. And so we were like, right, okay, well, let's just start sort of telling stories. And we just used like 40K stat lines, and we just made up rules, and it was just like simple D6 systems. And, those were some of, I think, genuinely the best campaigns I've ever run. But and we just sort of stay up really late, kind of playing that. So I think, with that, and just generally every game I've ever played has been homebrew to some extent or another. So it's just sort of a natural part of playing RPGs for me is actually making stuff for it.
You sparked a memory of the first time I was playing. My friend's older brother was running a 3.5 D&D game for us. And
yeah.
I mean, he might have been playing off of the rules. What do I know? I was like in grade 9, I'm 14, 13 years old, and I don't know the rules of this game, so I'm just leaning on him. If it was homebrew or official, it wouldn't have made any difference. What the matter is he was running a game for us and telling a story, and we were being pulled into that, and it was addictive, being not just part of a presentation, but being pulled into that experience at the same time. And whether it was the official Dungeons and Dragons rules or whether he was literally making it up as he went along, and I think it was the latter.
It
didn't matter. I was completely ignorant of the rules, so it wouldn't matter where it was coming from.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, and that was kind of the thing for me. Like, it was just about something to pass the time, really. And we had so much time as well, which was the incredible thing. It's like you're 10 years old, you've literally got all weekend, and then it's like, right, okay, yeah, let's run a sort of 18-hour session. And
I don't know how we used to do it.
Yeah, no, I know.
Likewise, I had quite a similar route into the tabletop world through Games Workshop and Warhammer 40K when I was about 9 years old or so as well. And I think to give a bit of context to that, within the UK, I think that was probably a quite common route for a lot of players, simply because Games Workshop's marketing, especially in the 90s when I was starting to get involved in the hobby, was through their multiple retail store outlets. And, your mum would take you to the shops to go to the shopping centre, and you'd go past a shop with loads of cool miniatures and sci-fi and huge hulking space marines and aliens, and inevitably you'd want to go have a look.
I think there's also more of a tradition of wargaming in the UK as well, with either in its roots as historical wargaming with miniatures of either retelling old battles of Waterloo or going through World War II history. That was already kind of more mature and established in the UK than it would be over here in North America.
I mean, I think...
that is the case. Yeah, there was...
I think the other thing is, though, while that existed, it wasn't exactly, big, I mean, the key thing, I think...
it was the way small mini trains was big. It was part of that world.
This is the thing, though, what we're trying to get across is Games Workshop was huge. They had a store on every high street. Oh, I see, They were just pocket money magnets, right? And I don't know many people of my age who didn't at some point collect Warhammer. At some point in their childhood, I would say, and I know it skews nerdy, my friend group, but even
but
guys
it was really a breakout success. It really crossed over into becoming much more mainstream.
Everyone at school had one or two minis, right?
Wow.
At least, or had played at someone else's house. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. So
Early 90s over here, it was just Pog.
Yeah, we had those. We had those too.
Well, and collectible cards. I guess Magic, and like Pokemon cards. Card gaming, collectible card gaming would have been like the big one that broke out. Less because we didn't have a Games Workshop in every corner, but you could go to a 7-Eleven and you could buy booster packs.
Yeah,
all the time. And so that really took off.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I hadn't considered it, but technically, I suppose I did start playing Pokemon cards before I got into Warhammer, which sort of counts as a tabletop thing. Same with like Magic the Gathering. But I think the key thing for me, and in terms of how it eventually led to perhaps this, was I know I was always a kid who actually like read the rules. Like, so like I remember when we were playing Pokemon at school, everyone would just play like top trumps, effectively. Like, you just like your top one, whatever was the best. There
were no rules for Pog. Way. Everyone was making it up. Everyone was fleecing everybody on the playground.
I actually got detention for like winning Pogs off a kid, and then he moaned and I won those fair and square.
Yeah.
He was even using like metal flippers and all sorts, and I was like, right, okay, fine, but I still won them. And then he was really, really pissed off, so he just went
in the same way that I think TikTok and Snapchat have been appealing in this generation. Pog was appealing because it was incomprehensible, especially to the adults around us, and especially to the kids that were a little bit younger or a little bit older. If you knew what you were doing, you were just running a con game all around you.
Right, yeah. It's like a racket, right?
Yeah, but I suppose that eventually veering back towards tabletop role-playing games got me into D&D when I was about 16. I got into 4th edition D&D, which and I've sort of gone backwards really, because I've gone from sort of more modern editions, 4th of which was quite controversial in that respect, and then sort of slowly crawled back I started playing like 3.5 after that, and then worked my way into playing like old school D&D, like basic and expert, and of which that whole sort of old school gaming movement has gone to inspire games like Mothership.
Yeah, so going into that, what was it about the role-playing part of tabletop games that got you away from that numbers game that cards and war games can become to like Mothership is a story game. So what was it that brought you into the story side of tabletop?
So, I guess for me, it was always, it was always just about, the narrative. It was just about telling the story, because we literally played on scraps of paper with like scribbles. I've never actually played, or growing up, not until after I got into the industry, I had never played 5e. And I think I played like AD&D 2nd edition, like a couple of sessions, like that was it. I'd never really played any D&D like at all. I played a little bit of Empire, and that was, I think, kind of it really for like proper role gaming systems. So I've never really been sort of too concerned with rules and their effects. I guess it's just like, right, okay, I just put together a stat line. That's all you need really, and then you just need to roll some dice when things aren't certain. But other than that, you're just kind of RPing it. I guess is kind of how I've always just played by default, I think. So yeah, that's kind of how I guess I've ended up now down here, because obviously having then played some 5e, and then it plays out very differently to kind of how my experience kind of growing up was. So if that makes sense.
A lot more things in 5e are codified. Every movement you do, every choice you have, whether it be social, combat, exploring, investigate, everything now has a code and a rule that's been assigned to it, because the game's had like 30 plus years to develop all of these variations. Exactly, So even though you have freedom to choose and move and interact, the GM is more often going to be like, all right, well, give me another roll on this because there's some uncertainty. And you're much more having to kind of split your brain between telling a story and also navigating the rules, the game part of the game.
Yeah, that's why I sort of also recuse myself a bit from the writing sometimes, and so I'll let Panny just make it work, and I just focus on making it look nice.
So moving more into the professional side, Panny, I know you historically is someone who helped me on the PR side with arranging interviews on this podcast in the past. So this is really fun to bring you from behind the scenes right up onto the front and have you on the show. How has that been like to transition from someone who was working in that more support role? Really important. There's so many people in the tabletop industry that go completely unmentioned, who are doing the accounting and the booking and the communications behind the scenes. Well, what has it been like now moving from that PR role to running and founding this new company and now having this game that you're talking about here on the show today?
Yeah, I guess I'm living the dream now, for real. I've been lucky to get like a lot of actual industry experience, even like working behind the scenes, and I've been very fortunate in that respect, because most people don't get to work in the tabletop industry in any sort of professional capacity. So I've been very fortunate there to be able to do that and to make links and connections I have, and I'm very much and I'm sort of very much now using that acquired skill set, along with like I've tended most of my jobs have tended to be within sort of the media and PR industry, and I've always sort of just done tabletop as a hobby, as many folk do. And then just sort of transitioning into, I don't know, it's been it's been a sort of good, fun transitionary process, really. Like, it's nice to be able to be producing my own stuff and promoting that. Just feels good. I don't know. I'm very happy at the moment in a simple sense, but just feeling very lucky as well to be able to do it.
That's terrific. Yeah, because this industry is a lot smaller than I think listeners of Actual Play podcasts realize. Even when we're dealing with the Wizards of the Coast side, even that, compared to other gaming industries, it's still quite intimate in its size of people that are involved, and the actual in terms of paying jobs that are also available. There's so many games that we've played here on the show that are, for all intents, passion projects or part-time projects that other people have put out, but they still have to have another life that they live just to make it work. This is not an easy business to crack. So Leyline Press, you reached out to me about Andromeda, and that's what we're really here talking about. So the introduction is important. I want to get to know you, but I also really wanted to get to know Andromeda about this. So you sent me some pictures, and the press release sounds really cool. It's a module of Mothership, as we mentioned a little bit briefly about that. So, I mean, take me through the origin story here of Andromeda. How have we ended up here talking about this game, and why having a module for Mothership? Why choosing that particular setting as your anchor? So
Mothership kind of came about. I actually play a lot of RPGs with people who don't play RPGs. This came about because basically a friend of mine and another friend of mine were going camping in the woods, and one of my friends who played a couple of sessions with me, like one shots and stuff like that, was kind of like, can you run something, like, because we're out camping in the woods, like there's nothing to do at night, so it's like, it's like being a kid again, right? You just kind of sat around, it's like, what do we do? So I was like, oh yeah, sure, and his friend hadn't really like played anything before, and so I was kind of like, right, okay, well, I'll scribble up some maps on the train up there, and I guess, like, I'll just run a thing. I'd recently played it's actually Alien, but the Chariot of the Gods module from Alien. And I was kind of like, so some sci-fi horror. I know, like, he's really into Alien and Aliens, both of them are. So I thought, that'll capture their attention more maybe than something fantasy. So, scribbled it up and then kind of ran it and played it, really enjoyed it. I ran it in Mothership because it's easy to pick up. So it's kind of like, there's 3 core stats, right? So, like, it just makes it quite simple. You just need like the D100. So I only had to take 2 dice with me. I didn't have to take like, a whole box of dice because we were backpacking. So, I just wanted something light. Like, you can just,
you can't
like,
bring
Mothership
your whole tabletop
tiny
with you. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mothership's like just a tiny book. So I just took the Mothership book with me and I was like, okay, that's all I need. Yes, then it was really good. And then I came back and I was kind of, because I was out there in the woods and I was kind of like, I had all these maps and I was kind of shining a torch on them. And I was kind of like, oh yeah, it'd be like really cool because it was really dark, right? And I was like, this would be really cool if this was actually like glowing. And then anyway, I got the juices flowing. So, it's kind of, I do a lot of risograph printing. We do a lot of printing on risograph, and so they have this fluorescent green ink, and I saw a sample of fluorescent green ink on a black embossed paper, and it just looked like, like scan lines on a TV kind of thing, on a green screen TV. And I was like, right, yeah, that's it. I've got to make that work.
It looks like somehow, the menu in Fallout, but in real life. It's really striking. That's the idea, it really pops, and it doesn't it doesn't look natural. Like you have the pictures here of this page, and like this. It looks weird. Yeah. It looks very otherworldly in a way. It looks
those photos,
Uncanny Valley.
Those photos are completely unfiltered actually and edited as well. Those are actually just photos. I mean, they're actually from my bath. The white background ones. Like baths make great it's a perfect base lighting.
That white porcelain.
Yeah, because you've just got the curve, right? White porcelain, completely curved. It's great.
So you're out in the woods and you just needed something that could glow in the dark, and then that set your brain going, and you started working with this. And then before you know it, you're taking pictures of your new game in a bathtub.
Yeah. So basically, what happened then is I kind of brought it back, and obviously it was like really, really rushed and terrible. So I was like, Panny, so I've got this outline, like, what do you think? Then Panny was like, yeah, no, that'd be great, but how about we change everything and I rewrite it like this, and wouldn't that be better? And I was like, yeah, no, that would be great.
This is a great idea, but consider, what if we changed everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the broad gist of my repitch of Andromeda.
So Panny, then your perspective, what was it here that Aled actually brought to you? And yet, yes, we're changing everything, but something hooked you in to agree to work on this.
Yes, I mean, the hugely beautiful, shiny, glowing map was probably the main draw. And I also just like I like working in a limited amount of space, and these sort of pamphlet modules are really good for that, because I feel you exercise a lot of your design muscles when you're quite constrained to a very specific format.
Some of the best games I've played in the last year are one-page RPGs where you're that designing in a box like that can be really it's really interesting what people come up with.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, I've been playing Mothership for a while now. So I run a old school gaming meet in London, and I was running that in the before time. So, and we ran and played Mothership then for the first time, and it's just a really cool system. It uses a lot of core, as it were, like OSR design principles, like emergent play, like high lethality, and a lot of weird randomization and open sort of sandbox gameplay, and then just combines that with all this really classic science fiction horror.
Before I dive a little deeper in, can you help explain just very briefly what OSR is? Because the Untitled Warriors, we haven't really dived into that. It's mostly been Powered by Apocalypse, or systems like 2D20 from Modiphius, or the year-end engine from Free League. OSR gets mentioned, but I worry that it becomes this encryption code that not every listener knows what that actually is.
Sure, yeah. So old OSR ostensibly stands for either old school Renaissance or old school revival, depending on who you ask. And it typically refers to games that have been inspired by the original editions of D&D. So that's original D&D and the basic and expert line of D&D set, which was the red and blue box that you got in the 1980s.
My Stan Lee little editor's note for our listener, Morkborg, that we did previously on a session 0, is also an OSR inspired setting. If you're looking for a comparison of what we're talking about today.
No, exactly. So Morkborg's a good example of, I suppose, what you'd call maybe a new wave-esque OSR games. So some OSR games, for example, Old School Essentials, are pretty much faithful recreations of those original rule sets, but done in a way that's a bit more easier for a modern audience.
And Dungeon Crawl Classic falls under this category as well, right?
Yeah. Dungeon Crawl Classics is another retro clone, right?
Yeah, DCC. So for things like DCC and Morkborg, actually, they are inspired by those rules, but then they take them in wild and interesting and innovative new directions. DCC UCC uses like some like a whole new dice system which can go up to like D24s and D26s and has loads of cool critical hit tables. And Morkborg has that whole like black metal aesthetic.
When you start stripping everything right back to the bone, all of a sudden you can do anything when you start adding meat onto it, because you're going right back to these basics, and then it's just a little bit of salt and pepper and it's a completely new game.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, for me, like if I was distilling OSR down to like its basics, it's like, it's your six stats, like 3d6 down the line, right? Like D20. And like, it's just key that you have like lots of tables and that emergent narrative, and like exploration matters, high lethality matters, like, you know,
it's fast.
Yeah. And
you're not going to get bogged down with an hour-long combat in a single room before you move on to the net. Like it's boom, a couple dice rolls and you have to live or you're dead.
Which I love that actually for narrative as well, which like, I guess it's why if I'm going to play D&D, it'll be like OSE, or it'll be, I'm actually running Forbidden Lands at the moment as well, because I really like that, but because I like that because it's kind of a crossover in a way. But I mean, I like it just because it lets me keep the pacing going. And I like pacing, I think, is just so important, especially, but then, you know, everyone kind of likes playing D&D rather than like PBTA or something like that. So
I mean, we're doing Symbaroum on the podcast this season, and today that you and I are talking is our episode 1 just got launched. The half of that episode is fighting, the last half hour. And any other year doing this podcast, I would have cringed at like, oh no, we did 30 minutes of actual play content of us just doing a combat encounter. Yeah. But there was something about that setting, because I guess the GM doesn't roll any dice and everything's moving faster and the lethality is so much higher, that every single dice roll was moving the story forward anyways. Yeah. And it didn't,
everything
didn't slow us down. It still worked. Everything mattered.
Yeah. The other thing I like about that sort of year zero engine for me is just because when players make those decisions and they roll those dice, they roll the damage on themselves, right? Like, so there's always, I know it doesn't really make a mechanical difference, but from a sort of psychological perspective, it's like, oh no, I've just played myself. Like, it doesn't feel like the DM is punishing you. Yeah,
because you don't have a health bar in Forbidden Lands. You just have your strength stat, and as you're taking damage, your strength stat is literally vanishing in front of you, and the pool of dice in your hand is getting smaller and smaller. There's it's a meta visceral translation of I am getting weaker. I can actually feel the dice falling through the fingers, the cracks in my fingers. And that has a real effect of that sense of dread. Now, setting up the definition of OSR was important for my actual question, because today on Twitter, there was a discourse happening on how do you do horror in OSR? And there was a debate between whether or not you even can, because of the way the rules are. Now, I'm assuming with Mothership and with Andromeda that you're touching in that like alien style of space horror. How do you feel about OSR and horror? I think I already know what the answer here is.
Pretty good.
I mean, yeah. So like, I was about to quite make this point, but like OSR games are like perfectly suited to horror. Like almost, I mean, I don't think necessarily intentionally, but those like elements of that basic D&D rules set of like high lethality, like your character can just die from like one hit, and that sort of emergent play where you have to like make these decisions, which when put in like a horrifying situation gets really tense, because you know that like you can turn a corner and there can be something horrific there, and your decisions do actually matter because you're vulnerable, and the GM is not going to just fudge the dice and let you get away with
resource management as well. Right.
And then like resource management, survival, and
run out of torches. Like, good luck.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. There's only so much the GM can save you from in that. There's very little safety net. They're like, well, I mean, it's there on the table. I can't save you from yourselves.
Then Mothership as well.
Yeah. So like Mothership sort of adds to that. So it picked up on the fact that these sort of OSR rule sets are actually well suited to horror. They tend to have like a low power level as well. Like even in the old school D&D stuff, like your wizard had like one spell at first level, and it was often randomly determined, and it was just like good luck from there. And likewise in Mothership,
something I noticed in Morkborg, you have like 3 hit points, and that would be a lot of hit points.
Yeah. And like D6 damage. Like good luck with that. roll. Just always keep a stable of characters, right?
Yeah, you need to have a stack that you've generated in advance, because this time I'm only fighting with a femur bone, and
why we always that's why there's loads of NPCs in Andromeda as well, because like you have to have loads of NPCs in there so that, you know, when the player characters die, there's like, right, okay, yeah, we can just, now you're him or her or them, you know. It's just you just take over characters that are in the background, and those NPCs now become new characters. But
yeah, the experience isn't the story that your character is telling. The experience is the story that the table is telling collectively as players. From that, let's move into Andromeda. Paint the picture for me. If I back this and I get a copy of this game and I'm playing it with my table, what are we signing up for? What are we going? What's the experience going to be like? What is Andromeda?
So I think with Andromeda, you're effectively getting one incredibly atmospheric night of science fiction play, like science fiction horror play. The module is gorgeous. We sell it with a UV light if you don't have one yourself, which means the whole thing's going to glow in the dark as you play. And the module itself has this A3 fold-out ship map, which is a beautiful centerpiece to play. And then within the adventure itself, you're going to be exploring the hub station Andromeda. I don't want to give away too many spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers, of course.
But you know, it's classic sci-fi. There's a union dispute gone wrong. You hear a distress signal. You're called in as sort of unknown horrors are unleashed in the bowels of the station, and you have to start making some like tough decisions with you and your players as to how you're going to approach this hot mess and deal with it, or whether you're just going to, you know, trying to just escape with your lives.
So we've got a few different factions in there, obviously, because of, like, you know, the union dispute gone wrong, and then, you know, other factors. There's a few different kind of, I guess, factions involved as well. So as you sort of explore your way through, the idea is kind of like, look, you know, it's quite sandboxy in terms of the way it plays. It's like there are things that will happen, and you will come across things, and but it's very much that sort of OSR emergent gameplay kind of thing, right? Like, you know, you could probably play it like 10 different times, and the story would just play out differently every time, because different things might happen, and, you know, sort of people will appear in different places and things like that, because a lot of it is kind of on tables essentially. So
yeah, I was going to ask, you mentioned like with Panny warning about no spoilers, how would the replayability, like once we've played through it and we have been introduced and we're a little spoiled, maybe we go back as a group, we're playing it a second time now, knowing a little more of what to expect. There's still going to be twists thrown your way. There's still going to be a randomness to the setting.
Like you'll know, I guess, you'll have figured out the big secrets, right? Like, you know, you'll know roughly kind of what everything is and where it is and what's going on. But, you know, obviously it can still shake out in a different way. But
yeah, and I think for a GM who like runs a lot of games for a lot of different groups, like myself,
yeah,
and I do tend to like making products that I'm actually going to use for obvious reasons that I'd want to buy myself. And like every time you run this with a group, it's going to play differently. Like maybe not if you run it for the exact same group, but I think it still has some replay value there. But when you run it for different groups, it's going to run differently, because as said, there's different factions. There's this sort of group of union miners. There's the station crew themselves, and there's the aforementioned horrors, as well as a few other interesting bits and pieces, like, because we've just tried to condense and put as much like gameable content in there as possible, given its compact size.
Yeah.
I did want to ask that, when it comes to indie games, if you're the one who buys the game, we all know you're the one who's going to end up running the game. So what is it like as the GM? What is their experience going to be, especially if maybe this is one of their first times running a game and they're part of a gaming group and this is really cool, I want to bring this to the table. What's it going to be like on their side of the screen, running Andromeda?
Yeah, I think this is actually a pretty good one for a new GM, because it's such a like compact module. Like you've not got like a vast amount of information to take in, and whilst we've got a lot of twists and turns within there, the story is still like very like classic sci-fi. You know, derelict hub station, like distress signal, what's going on. It picks up on a lot of those tropes. You know. which means that running it, I think, if you've never run like Mothership or like sci-fi, or even if you've never run a game before, it's going to be pretty good as like an introductory thing.
I mean, if I'm running the Alien RPG for my friends and they're big fans of the lore and I don't know what the heck I'm doing, it can be a little daunting only because that, as great as that book is, a good 100 pages of it are just on the setting and the world. And, you know, if you're doing something more established like Dungeons and Dragons or Vampire or that, like there's so much if you really want to get into the history of those games and the lore in those worlds. Whereas, you know, if you're playing an indie game like Andromeda or like Mothership, it's so much more compact and so much easier to just get yourself up to speed. And no one else in the room is going to know either.
I think
so.
The other thing is because
there's no one correcting you.
You kind of like, you have to a certain extent, lean quite heavily into tropes with stuff like this because obviously like the setup kind of is evocative of things like, you know, Alien or like, like Event Horizon and, you know, sort of those classic kind of like 70s, 80s, 90s kind of.
You need
like
to give the audience what they want. Like, you can't just keep it all hidden away.
Yeah, like, and all those cues kind of like, they just kind of bring it straight to the fore, right? You don't have to have like 300 pages of background about the company that built the space station. Like, no one cares. Like, you know, you're here now and like, just, it's about your characters, not necessarily, you know, the whole world building. And then that's the other thing as well. When you set it on a space station and floating through the middle of space, you know, the world is very small, so there's not much to build.
And everything outside that station literally will kill you. Yeah. And so there's this, you're surrounded by this void and this lethality. I find playing settings. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I think like the video game Alien Isolation was also so scary. It's just you're not safe here, and you don't have anywhere to run to. It's almost worse than being in a submarine in that like everything around you, the whole environment
everything is trying to kill you.
Barely holding together and barely keeping you alive, right? One of the Dead Space, the necromorphs were terrifying, but so was the station itself that you were on. As walls are blowing out and things are falling apart and power is going out, the station is only keeping you alive barely. And there's that threat that's always there, that space is so hostile.
Yeah, I mean, it's that classic exploration of the unknown, like D&D in its original form, especially with the dungeon crawl. Like, I think that's why that was such like a, as it were, like a killer app for the game, because it like self-contained the adventure in a space that was like that you couldn't necessarily like escape from, but had like walls and stuff that you could explore without getting too overwhelmed. And then throwing that into space makes it even more terrifying because you can't decide to leave the station to just like explore the like stars because you're often trapped there unless you've got a spaceship. But so
then who's to say that that's not been damaged or sabotaged or any number of useful and oft used plot points.
Exactly. So it ramps it up again to that like real horror level. Like it takes that that claustrophobic setting and then just like
one thing we've not actually mentioned, you were asking before about Mothership and you know how it does horror so well. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this or if your listeners are, but Mothership also has a stress system built into it, which we hadn't mentioned. So obviously the stress system is specifically designed to ratchet this up. So doing certain things or having certain things happen to you gives you stress. And if you accumulate enough of it, you can literally just die of a heart attack. Like you can just die from stress, or you go catatonic, or your character can just go insane and start shooting up his friends. And it's that stress system which freely put in a very similar system in Alien as well. They work really well in that regard.
Sure. In the movies, in the Alien movies, the threat isn't the monster as much as the other people that are there with you, who aren't listening to the quarantine and aren't listening to orders, and they all have different ideas of how to get out. They've all got their own different agendas, and they all start. There's a moment usually in like the second act where they go against each other and almost wipe each other out before they all have to rally for the final push, whoever survives that.
As they say, you don't see the aliens fucking themselves over for a goddamn percentage.
No.
Sorry, I love that movie, and I will quote it endlessly. So,
Absolutely.
I should probably
Feel
stop, or
free.
you'll get like a copyright strike or something, because it's using too much of it.
I would be thrilled if this Rinky Dink podcast got a cease and desist one day. I would hang that on my wall. Andromeda. Andromeda's on Kickstarter. It got funded in 2 hours. Congratulations. It is still currently on Kickstarter at the time that we're releasing this. So there's time for you to visit through that. The link is going to be in the show notes. So for the Kickstarter side of Andromeda, how has that gone? What have we got to look forward to? What are you hoping to accomplish? And like, what's the roadmap here for Andromeda for those of us who are backing this project?
So yeah, I mean, we've done beyond our wildest dreams in terms of success for the Kickstarter.
Yeah, congratulations.
Considering we're pretty small, this is the first thing that we've done as a company. It's had a really strong response, which we're really happy with, and obviously we're really thankful for all our backers so far, and really happy with that. And because of that success, we're at the moment actually, this first time we've talked about this, we're collaborating. I'm not going to name too many names, but we're collaborating with a few other people at the moment to hopefully add some extra add-ons to the Kickstarter, some a little bit of extra content for everyone involved. Which is going to be like part of our plan, but mostly we're just hoping to successfully fund it and send it to all our lovely backers.
Yeah. I just really want to see it in print, because I think once it's on that embossed paper with the fluorescent green, I like making things. I like having that finished product in hand, so I'm just really excited for that. There are some other add-ons that we're looking on as well. From there, then we've got a few other things that we're launching. We've got another pamphlet out at the moment, which is an old school OSR pamphlet called Isle of Glaslyn. There is more in that vein to come soon. And then we've also got our top secret, super special project, which we can't really discuss at the moment.
We'll have you back when you're ready to talk about that.
That's going to be later on this year.
So there will be a nod to that in Andromeda.
There is actually.
Wily-eyed people are going to be hunting our Easter eggs out.
Yeah, well, certainly in the past year, virtual gaming has become like the only way. But I still love a good physical copy on my bookshelf. Something new that I can have that is as much to play as it is to display and to show what other people and show something really wild. And this does look really wild. These pictures that you've shared.
That backside is all player facing information. There's no GM information on that side. So, it's like, as I've played obviously lots of stuff before, and I've run lots of stuff before, but one thing that really, really bothers me is when you have some really beautiful illustration or some really lovely map, and it's all keyed, covered in information. You can't show it to the players, and you're just kind of like, if I'm going to have something, I want everyone to see it. Like it's this really nice thing. Let's have it in the middle of the table,
you're like, you see this much as you're covering your hands at the top and the bottom, and you're trying to not get your thumb in the way. There, that face, that's what you see.
Or you've got like
everything else you're not allowed to know yet.
A million sheets of A4, and you're kind of shuffling them around as you're showing areas of the dungeon, right? I like just sort of like putting it all out there, and that's
it kills me as a GM if I have so much of this amazing material, but it's all restricted to my side of the table, and I can't share it, and I can't show you, and I can't tell you. I don't want to be the magician who doesn't share their secrets. I want you to know what's going on in my head so that we can all work together at this.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, as a company, I think we put a premium on like physical products. Andromeda is very much a physical product. There is a digital edition of it you can get, but ultimately we want people playing it, in person in that glow in the dark UV, beautiful shininess. And I think it also fits the sort of OSR-y games that we produce, because they tend to be games where you're the GM doesn't tend to use a screen. That's a point of discussion within the community, but it encourages a lot of open play, a lot of rolling dice in the open, and a lot of having material in the open. And a lot of our products reflect that as well, like the Isle of Glaslyn as well, which is
So this is a similar thing again. So for the listeners, it's a similar thing to Andromeda. It folds up the same way, but it's designed to basically fold in the middle. So when it sits on the table, it's kind of half of the information is visible to the players, and then the other half is visible to just the GM. So it kind of folds to make a kind of impromptu GM screen, if you like, with player-facing information on one side and then GM-facing information on the other side.
So clever. It's like a little pop-up book. It comes up in the middle.
Exactly.
And rather than standing it like a traditional screen where you might have an image or words on one side and then on the other.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really fun.
It folds away into like its little booklet form as well, with then all the...
Yeah, it just fits into your...
So, this is...
into your binder or your backpack that you brought everything in.
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of feel like these are the sorts of things, take it down to a con, like, run it super simple and easy. You don't have like, massive books to carry or anything like that. So chuck it in your pocket and grab some dice and go, but I think we're kind of quite focused on making interesting, usable, gameable products that, are efficient, I think, but also look nice and give you something to put on the table and put in front of people and sort of say, hey, look, you get to see this. And, this is as much for the players to use as the GM almost, really.
Aled, Panny, where can we follow up with each of you and with Leyline Press and with Andromeda? Give us the plugs. Let us know where it's going to go. And of course, check the show notes, listener. That's where they're all going to be. If you want to follow up on all of these products that they keep talking about, this exciting future of playable games that we all miss doing right now. So,
our website is leyline.press. So super easy. And then I need Panny to tell you the socials because I don't remember what they are, and Panny set them up.
You can follow us on Twitter at Leyline Press. Facebook and Instagram are also at Leyline Press. And you can find the Kickstarter simply by searching Andromeda on Kickstarter at the moment, or you can go to projects /Leyline-Press /Andromeda.
Personally, you can find me on Twitter at Aled Lawler, which is just my personal account. You're mostly just going to see probably pictures of my rats on there because I have pet rats.
Excellent.
And, that's about it. But
you can find me at Panny_lines, and you can find my wild hot RPG takes shit posting on.
It's all memes, really, isn't it, on the personal account? We try and restrict that to there so we don't get in trouble.
Company account. Occasionally blog posts and other things.
Well, we might not know what goes bump in the dark because you don't want to spoil it with us, but we do know it glows in the dark with Andromeda.
Yeah.
So this has been very exciting. Thank you for reaching out.
We do have to specify, though, it doesn't actually glow in the dark. It's fluorescent, not phosphorescent.
It's fluorescent. It reflects a UV light in low lighting settings, and it will appear to your eyes the illusion of glowing.
Yes, absolutely.
But it was the only thing I could think of with Bump in the Dark. I had this whole pun working in my head, but Ellen had to correct the record and do that because it's their business and I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah. So I was like trading standards brain kicked in and I was like, but seriously, guys, though, it doesn't glow in the dark. If you're buying this...
And point of note... Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be a tabletop discussion if we didn't have a little bit of rules lawyering at the end.
Actually, yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
Thanks again to Panny and Aled from Leyline Press for sharing their story today. Their Kickstarter is happening right now, and there's still time to jump in and support this really interesting game. Check the show notes for a link. Let them know the Terrible Warriors sent you. We will return on Tuesday with the next episode in our ongoing Symbrome series, Part 2, The Theft of the Sunstone. But if you don't want to wait until then, you can head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/terriblewarriors right now and listen to episode 2 before the general public. Yes, you can spend the weekend listening to our excellent cast of players as they work to track down the thief who's stolen the only thing that will keep them alive if the weather up in the Titans were to turn on them. We're also giving away a free digital copy of Symbrome, which you can learn more about by visiting terriblewarriors.com or following us on Twitter at Dice Warriors. And until we meet again, chasing and being chased through snowy mountain peaks on the way to the promised land of Ambria, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting independent game creators and independent podcasters. Thank you for being a terrible warrior. Until next time, be good to each other.